You know that moment when you feel alone. Do you feel, even when surrounded by people, that inside there's an emptiness that no one can fill? Today we're going to talk about something few dare to admit: spiritual loneliness. And more than that, we're going to discover how God transforms silence into spiritual strength, and why this moment that seems like a desert can actually be the place where your life will be transformed forever. Stay until the end, because I'm going to share a biblical revelation that will completely change the way you see this moment you're living through. Have you ever felt that emptiness that won't go away, even when you're surrounded by people? It's as if, inside, there's an unanswered echo. Emotional loneliness doesn't choose a place or time. It simply appears, silent but heavy. And the hardest part, realizing that no one around seems to understand what you're feeling. This inner emptiness is more common than we imagine. Millions of people wake up every day carrying this invisible weight. It's not just being physically alone, it's feeling disconnected, even in the middle of a crowd. It's like screaming inside and realizing that no one is listening. This spiritual loneliness may seem like a dead end, but perhaps it's exactly the opposite. God allows us to face this silence for a reason. Sometimes emptiness is not punishment, it's an invitation. An invitation to look inward and discover what the noise of life hides. When everything is quiet, when there are no more distractions, that's when the soul can finally speak. And that's when something mysterious begins to happen. The Bible shows us that great encounters with God happened precisely in moments of solitude. Moses was in the desert when he saw the burning bush. Elijah heard the gentle voice of God, not in the earthquake, but in the silence. Jesus Christ withdrew to deserted places to pray. Is there something in this silence that we need to discover? How do you deal with loneliness when it seems to swallow you whole? The answer may be closer than you think, because when everything around you falls silent, there is a voice that never stops speaking, and that voice knows every pain, every tear, every anguish you carry. The emptiness you feel today may be the space God is preparing for something your eyes have not yet seen. But what happens when the silence starts to hurt? When emotional isolation turns into despair? There is a kind of loneliness that screams without making a sound. It's that pain that no one sees, but that consumes you from within. You try to explain, but the words won't come out. You try to ask for help, but it seems like no one really understands. It is at this moment that the silence becomes an invisible scream, a cry for help that echoes only inside your chest. Many of us hide this pain. We put on a smile, answer "I'm fine" when asked, but inside we're falling apart. Loneliness, according to the Bible, is not shameful. It's part of the human experience. Even God's greatest servants went through it. And there's a story I need to tell you. Joseph was 17 years old when he was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, taken to a foreign land where he knew no one. Imagine the loneliness of that young man, far from home, far from everything he knew. He had no cell phone to call his father, no friends to talk to. He was completely alone. And then things got worse. He was unjustly accused, thrown into prison. Years passed, years of silence, years where it seemed that God had forgotten him. But do you know what Joseph didn't know? That each day of that solitude was shaping a leader, that each tear shed in the darkness was preparing someone who would one day save entire nations from famine. Joseph's solitude was not abandonment, it was preparation. That's precisely where the secret lies. God is more present in solitude than ever before. When you feel nothing, when it seems as if heaven is silent, that's when He is working most deeply. Because God doesn't need noise to work. He works in silence, in the depths of the soul, where no one else can reach. Faith in difficult times doesn't mean feeling good all the time. It means trusting even when you don't understand. It means believing there is a purpose, even when everything seems meaningless. The invisible cry you carry, God hears it, and He is answering in a way you cannot yet see, because sometimes the greatest miracle isn't God immediately taking you out of loneliness. It's Him revealing Himself within it, the desert. Just thinking about it brings to mind images of heat, thirst, emptiness. In the Bible, the spiritual desert is the place where it seems nothing grows, where there is no life, where you are completely alone. But here's something that will change your perspective. The desert is also the place where God speaks most clearly. It was in the desert that Moses received the Ten Commandments. It was in the desert that the people of Israel learned to depend completely on God. It was in the desert that Jesus overcame the temptations of the enemy. Why is the desert so spiritually important? Because there are no distractions there. In the desert, you cannot rely on your own strength. You need God. Every step is an act of faith. Each passing day, you learn that without Him, you are nothing. And it is precisely this humility, this total dependence, that opens your ears to hear what the noise of the world hides. Silence and faith go hand in hand. In silence, you stop trying to control everything. You stop seeking solutions solely through your own intelligence. And in that moment of surrender, something supernatural happens. You begin to hear God's whispers. They are not thunder. They are not spectacular signs. They are gentle, yet powerful whispers that touch exactly where your soul needs to be touched. David, the man after God's own heart, spent years in the desert fleeing from King Saul, alone, pursued, not knowing if he would live to see the next day. But it was in the desert that he wrote his most profound psalms. It was in solitude that he learned to call God his refuge, his fortress, his shepherd. The desert did not destroy David. It transformed him into the greatest king of Israel. The healing silence begins when you stop fighting it and start listening through it. Because God is not far away. He is right there, in the middle of your desert, whispering truths that will change your life forever. But what, after all, is the purpose of all this pain? All pain has a purpose, even when you can't see it. Loneliness and divine purpose are connected in a way that our human minds take time to comprehend. When you are in the midst of pain, it's hard to believe that it serves a purpose. It seems like just meaningless suffering. But God never wastes anything. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of anguish, everything is being used to sculpt something beautiful within you. Think of a seed. For it to grow and become a strong tree, it first needs to be buried, alone, in the dark, surrounded by earth on all sides. If that seed could speak, it might say, "I'm trapped, I'm alone, I'm in the dark." But the truth is, it's not trapped. It's being prepared. And when the time is right, it breaks through the shell, emerges from the earth, and transforms into something much greater than it was before. The purpose of solitude is to reveal paths you would never have seen in the midst of a crowd. It is to purify emotions that needed healing. It is to align your heart with eternal values, removing everything that is superficial and fleeting. How does God transform pain? He uses it as a tool for shaping, not destruction. Before continuing, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this is content that can change many people's lives. And if you feel this message was made especially for you, leave an amen in the comments. Your participation helps us reach more hearts. The Bible says in Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." All things, even loneliness, even silence, even the pain you are feeling right now, God is using all of that for something good, something eternal, something that goes far beyond what you can imagine. And when you finally understand that there is a purpose, something inside you begins to change. The pain doesn't disappear immediately, but you begin to see it with different eyes. Because now you know God is here, right in the middle of your desert, transforming you. What seemed to be the end may actually be the beginning of the greatest transformation of your life. What if silence were not absence, but presence? We live in a world that never stops. Noise everywhere. Notifications, appointments, voices, opinions, and in the midst of it all, the voice of God is muffled. But when silence arrives, that heavy silence of solitude, something extraordinary can happen. You can finally hear. Moments of silence with God are not empty. They are full of His presence, His peace, His love that needs no words to be felt. It's like that friend who sits beside you without saying anything, but you know He's there, and that's enough. God does that with you. He's beside you in the silence, waiting for you to perceive Him. Elijah, the great prophet, fled to the desert, afraid of dying. He was exhausted, alone, begging to die, but God did not rebuke him. God sent an angel to care for him, to feed him. And then He took Elijah to a mountain. There a very strong wind passed, breaking rocks, but God was not in the wind. An earthquake came, but God was not in the earthquake. Fire came, but God was not in the fire. And after all this came a gentle whisper, and it was there in the silence that Elijah heard the voice of God. How can you feel God's presence when you are alone? Stop looking for thunder and earthquakes. Stop waiting for spectacular signs. God is in the whisper. In the silence of your solitude, He is speaking things you need to hear. That you have value, that He has never abandoned you, that you are loved with an eternal love. Silence and faith meet in this sacred place where you stop asking questions and simply trust. Where you stop demanding answers and begin to rest in the presence of the One who has all the answers. It is a profound, intimate, transformative encounter. And when God reveals Himself in silence, something is born within you that the world cannot give. True spiritual strength. There is a force that the world does not know. It's not the strength of muscles. It's not the strength of intelligence or money. It's spiritual strength in God, the kind that arises when you're at your limit, when you have nothing left to offer, but still choose to trust. It's the strength that is born from the invisible, that grows in silence, that is strengthened in solitude. The Apostle Paul knew this power well. He wrote to the Corinthians about a thorn in the flesh that tormented him. 3 times he cried out to God asking to be freed from that pain. And do you know what God answered? My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Paul then said something revolutionary. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. This is the strength that comes from the unseen. When you are weak, God makes you strong. When you are alone, He becomes your companion. When you have nothing, He becomes everything. Spiritual strengthening doesn't happen when everything is going well. It happens when you are broken, but choose to trust in the God who restores. Hope in God during solitude is unlike any other hope. It's not cheap optimism. It's not wishful thinking. It's a deep certainty rooted in faith that God is in control and that He is good. Even when circumstances scream otherwise, something within you remains firm, unwavering, because it's anchored in something greater than yourself. David wrote in Psalm 23, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." He didn't say, "if I walk," he said, "even though I walk," because he knew that valleys are part of the journey. But he also knew that God was with him every step of the way. When you discover this invisible force, something permanently changes within you. You are no longer the same person. And it is this force that paves the way for the profound healing that is to come. The cure for loneliness doesn't begin from the outside in. It begins from the inside out. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. But when God begins to heal your soul, you can be physically alone and feel whole, because true healing happens on the inside, where no one else can see, where only God has access. It is there in the depths of your being that He begins to restore what was broken. Healing isn't instantaneous. Sometimes it's a slow, delicate process. God is in no hurry. He works layer by layer, wound by wound, memory by memory. He touches the parts you didn't even know were hurt. And with infinite gentleness, He cleanses, restores, and renews. Finding strength in God during this process means allowing Him to perform the spiritual surgery you need. It means letting go of control and allowing the one who created you to recreate you as well. Isaiah 61:3 speaks of this. God came to comfort all who mourn, to give them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Ashes transformed into a crown, tears turned into joy, anguish transformed into praise. This is what happens when God heals your soul. You look back and realize that what almost destroyed you was exactly what God used to transform you. The pain had a purpose. The loneliness was preparing you for something greater. The spiritual transformation that happens through healing is profound and lasting. It's not superficial. It's not temporary. It's a change of identity, a complete renewal. You don't go back to being who you were before. You become someone new, stronger, wiser, more connected to God. And with this healing, you realize loneliness wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And now, something new is being born within you. You are no longer the person you were when this journey began. Inner rebirth happens when you go through the symbolic death of the old self and emerge as someone transformed. It's like the butterfly that needs to fight to get out of the cocoon, because it is precisely this struggle that strengthens its wings to fly. If someone were to cut the cocoon to help, the butterfly would die because its wings would be weak. The struggle is necessary for transformation. Loneliness and spiritual growth go hand in hand. Jesus said in John 12:24, "Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone, but if it dies, it bears much fruit." There was something in you that needed to die. Pride, fear, self-sufficiency, the need to control everything. And loneliness was the soil where these things were buried so that something new could be born. Now you understand things you didn't understand before. You value things you previously ignored. Your faith is no longer based on feelings, it's based on deep conviction. You experienced God in the desert, so you know He is real. You felt His presence in the silence, so you know He never abandoned you. The spiritual strengthening you received wasn't meant to be kept to yourself. It was meant for you to walk with purpose. It was meant for you to help others who are going through what you went through. Because now you have something precious, a testimony. You can say, "I know what it is to suffer. I know what it is to feel alone, but I also know what it is to be rescued by God." Overcoming loneliness through faith doesn't mean you'll never feel alone again. It means you now know where to run when that feeling arrives. You know the refuge. You know the comforter. You know the one who transforms deserts into gardens. And before you, a path opens up, new, full of purpose, guided by the hand of God. The process you went through in silence prepared you for something you never even imagined. The spiritual quest in solitude was not in vain. Each tear watered a seed. Each prayer in the darkness lit a light. Each moment you chose to trust, even without understanding, built a solid foundation within you. And now, that foundation will support everything God has planned for your life. Learning in solitude is unique. You learn to hear God's voice in the silence. You learn that He is enough, even when everything else fails. You learn that your strength is not in yourself, but in the one who lives within you. These are lessons that no school teaches, that no book can fully convey. Only personal experience with God can reveal them. Hope in God during solitude now transforms into confidence for the future. You look ahead, and even without knowing exactly what's coming, you know who is in control, and that changes everything. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." The path is different now. You are different. Your faith is deeper, your perception is sharper, your connection with God is more intimate. You no longer walk as someone lost. You walk as someone who knows the way, the truth, and the life. And even if new challenges arise, you know you are not alone. God took what the enemy wanted to use to destroy you, loneliness, silence, pain, and transformed it into fuel for your growth. What was weakness became strength. What was emptiness became fullness. What was a curse became a blessing. But one last revelation is still missing, the most powerful of all. Here is the climax of everything we have experienced so far. God uses what seemed like destruction to generate inner power. The spiritual strength in God that was born in your silence now manifests itself in ways you never imagined. You have discovered a spiritual authority that doesn't come from diplomas or positions. It comes from the secret place with God. It comes from battles no one saw, victories no one applauded, and intimacy no one witnessed except you and Him. How does God transform pain into power? He takes every difficult experience and turns it into wisdom. Every moment of weakness where you cried out to Him and He answered becomes an anchor of faith for the rest of your life. You now have stories of divine faithfulness. You have marks of His grace. You have scars that prove He heals. Complete spiritual transformation happens when you realize loneliness wasn't the problem. It was the solution. It was the perfect context for you to truly find God, without masks, without performance, without an audience. There, in your weakest moment, you discovered that He is more than enough. And now nothing can separate you from that knowledge. 2 Corinthians 12:10 captures this perfectly. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong. This is the mathematics of the kingdom of God, completely opposed to the logic of the world. Your identity is now strengthened, not in what you do or what people say about you, but in who God says you are. You are a child. You are loved. You are chosen. You are victorious. And nothing, no circumstance, no loneliness, no desert can change that truth. The silence that was once your enemy is now your ally, because you have learned to find God there. And that is a discovery that changes everything. And now we've reached the end of this journey, but also a new beginning. The silence you experienced, the spiritual solitude you endured, wasn't just for you. It was for all those who will come after you, who are walking the same path now. Because your story of pain transformed into strength is exactly what someone needs to hear today, so they don't give up. When loneliness becomes a testimony, it ceases to be merely personal suffering and transforms into light for others. You now have a powerful message. I went through the desert and survived. I was in the valley and God lifted me up. I felt alone, but I discovered I never was. This message has the power to save lives, to restore hope, to rekindle faith. The purpose of your solitude was greater than you could imagine. God wasn't just shaping you. He was preparing you for a mission. Solitude and divine purpose were intertwined from the beginning. Every tear had a destination. Every prayer had an answer. Every dark night was gestating a glorious dawn. You are living proof that God transforms. Your life now shouts a truth that no one can deny. God is faithful. He does not abandon. He does not give up. He takes the broken pieces and creates masterpieces. He transforms deserts into gardens, mourning into dancing, ashes into beauty. The journey continues. There will be new challenges, new moments of silence. But now you know, with God, no silence is wasted. Every moment of solitude can be an encounter with the divine. Every desert can be the place where God speaks most clearly. And every pain can be the raw material for your greatest testimony. Isaiah 43:18-19 reminds us, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and rivers in the wasteland." God is doing something new in you. And the loneliness you experienced was only the beginning of this glorious transformation. If you've made it this far, it wasn't by chance. Perhaps you're going through a lonely time right now. Perhaps the silence is heavy and you feel alone. But I want you to know, God is with you. He sees every tear. He hears every prayer. And He is transforming this desert into a place of encounter with Him. The spiritual loneliness you face is not the end. It's the beginning of a journey of profound spiritual transformation. God is shaping you, strengthening you, preparing you for something greater. How to deal with loneliness. Surrender it into the hands of the One who transforms everything into purpose. If this message touched your heart, leave a comment telling us what God spoke to you today. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this word of hope, and subscribe to the channel to continue receiving messages that strengthen your faith and renew your hope in God. Remember, the healing silence begins when you allow God to speak through it. Moments of silence with God are precious, sacred, and transformative. Don't be afraid of solitude. It can be the place where you find the spiritual strength in God that will change your life forever. May the Lord bless you, keep you, and make His face shine upon you. May He give you peace on this journey and show you day after day that you have never been alone. For as it is written in Hebrews 13:5, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." Your solitude has a purpose, your silence has a voice, and God is transforming all of that into strength, into testimony, into abundant life. Stay calm, and remember, the best is yet to come.